Hi, colleagues. This week, we are tasked with finding two primary sources that really speak to the nature of the difference, I guess, ideologically and practically between freedom and liberty. Aristotle, he defined freedom as an individual thing, that it comes from the individual, that it is a natural, inherent part of humanity, that eventually the goal of excellence and virtue and productivity and economic stability and all these things that like really underpin societies, that would end up being the way freedom would become enacted. Cicero, on the other hand, believed that liberty is based on freedom. It's based on individual freedom. However, it is the actual government and like a political and social product of individual liberty, and it is there so that those rights of the individual would be protected, and that you would thus be free from coercion and oppressive states. And those two combined sort of inform us of the idea of Western freedoms. However, I think in between freedom and liberty is kind of lodged the idea of equity. To whom do freedom and liberty actually belong? Because we know that Aristotle believed that slaves were natural in slavery, that natural slaves were belonged where they were, and that certain people were allowed liberty. And that's similar in Cicero because obviously certain classes of men are allowed liberty. And so to whom does liberty and freedom actually apply, and is it equitable? The two primary sources that I chose for this discussion is Sir Symonds D'Ewes' parliamentary discussion of the poorest man in 1640. And there's quite a debate about whether or not the common man, the poorest man, should be included in English liberty. And one parliamentary member says, I move the poorest man ought to have a voice that is the birthright of all the subjects of England. And then another, Mr. Maynard, says, I move that they should not have a voice. And then Sir John Hatham spoke that they should have voices. And eventually the motion is that the poorest man should have a voice. My second source is about Bacon's rebellion in the United States, because Bacon's rebellion is essentially about this idea of English liberty kind of coming into a transnational space in the British colonies in the United States, because Bacon's rebellion essentially centered on the common man and where the common man fit in the idea of liberty, as well as if African slaves should have this notion of liberty as well. And we know because of the Virginia laws, of the Virginia 1662 law that actually says that slavery, that the condition of the child follows the mother, which indoctrinates slavery in North America. If Bacon were, and the common man, the common Anglo man, were then to align themselves with the First Nations and the African slaves, then the ideas of liberty definitely change and become an entire different definition. So this week I was really looking at how these theoretical definitions of freedom actually turn out in practice.